his right foot.
Yeah,
I gave him all the credit that he
that's right.
deserved. And
Yeah.
it's not that I think that Dembele is not the answer, but he's certainly not the answer on a wing. And Eriksson was non-existent playing on the left. He
Well,
creates so much more for this
I
squad. But and when he was effective, where was he though? Really, it's peeling in towards the middle, as is Lamela. We became so compact at times that we ended up with 2, 3, 4 players within a 5-yard box of each other, and I was really worried about with Welbeck's speed, playing on a wing like he did, that we were going to get burned on the counterattack going up the wings because we ended up so compact.
But if you can't trust Danny Rose to mark a Danny Welbeck, look, I feel like in a game like that, I said all week I wanted him playing, and I wanted Nabil playing, and I wanted Mason playing because I felt like you cannot give up the middle of the park. You have to be physical. You have to put strong physical players in. I was a little worried about Lamela. Definitely didn't want Townsend in there, and that's what he did. Dembele's just a bit frustrating because he beats his man, right, but then turns back, and you're just like, oh. But you know what?
Yeah.
It was about controlling the middle, and I don't remember really us losing ever a ball in the air that whole match.
and that's a good point to make because we said it before. Dembele's strong. His hold-up play is great. It's very hard to dispossess him, and he has a tendency to go backwards or sideways more often than going forward. But he kept the ball, and he backtracked along with a lot of players. We talked about Lamela. We didn't. A lot of people said, "Well, you didn't see a lot of attacking prowess from him," but he ran and ran and ran. They all did.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that it was his corner that set up Harry's first goal.
Yeah.
Mason and Bentaleb were just phenomenal in the middle of the park. They were just snapping at Arsenal's heels, cleaning up anything. If they lost the ball, they got it back. And I don't recall the last time I saw such tenacity in the defensive midfield of a Spurs team.
Yeah.
It just gave us supreme confidence. And even, you probably got a little nervous because it's a very Spursy thing to do when any team's going forward towards our defense. But we didn't have to worry because Dyer was so composed that it quickly evaporated any fears of him being in there for Fazio, since Fazio and Vertonghen's partnership has been so good this season. And Rose was just phenomenal. I made the comment last night. One of the several pictures that you saw was either of Mason, Bentaleb, and Kane. So there's your 3 academy guys, or there'd be the 3 of those and Rose, because they're all very similar in age. And the total cost of those 4 players was £1 million, which we paid for Rose from Leeds.
Yeah.
And what a phenomenal 4 those were yesterday.
Yeah.
If you believe the hype of all the media, and we know how fickle the media can be, because we lose tomorrow, and we're the worst team in the league again, but all of a sudden, Spurs are the darlings of the Premier League, and Harry Kane is the messiah of English football. And I'll revel in that for as long as it may continue, because we've been starved of that kind of attention since Gareth Bale was turning everyone inside out in the Premier League a few seasons ago. And one other point on this match: as much as I gave the Gooners that I know over here in the States a hard time, and they're like, oh, here's Doddy's crawling out of the woodwork, hope you enjoyed your cup final, my retort was quite simple. No, our cup final's in 3 weeks. So, we weren't taking selfies at the end of the match either. So, a win is a win. It's
tie on...
It's they make it sound like we haven't beaten them in 5 years.
Right, show some humility. I couldn't believe any Arsenal fan would have the nerve to say that. Right?
This is why I didn't choose them as my club when I was selecting, because I think they're diluted, and it proves it.
I had tweeted, I guess Tottenham Sweden had visited the empty crates the day after, and I had no reason for any Gooner to latch onto that, but they did, and abused me rotten all afternoon. I'm like, boy, you guys are surely obsessed with us.
Yeah, obviously.
All right. Yeah.
And it's interesting too. You mentioned earlier, the academy kids and how much they've done. But I know something, Simon, that's kind of close to your heart. Between Dyer, Walker, Rose, Mason, and Kane, 5 English lads on the pitch too, though.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. I was counting them last night watching the game, and no one had really picked up on that I had seen either in the regular media outlets or on social media. But to have 5 English players that aren't getting a look in Roy's senior team, I couldn't tell you the last time we had a starter for England outside of Defoe, and that's been a while for him, and Lennon even longer. Yeah. There was a time, we'd have a lot of the guys on the fringe, whether it be Genius or Huddlestone. Then Walker was starting to get a look in, and of course he was injured for the best part of a year. But I think when Roy calls up the squad for, I think we got Lithuania in the Euros late March, and then a friendly with Italy, you gotta think there are going to be some Spurs players called up for that. I'm not sure if Rose will. Leighton Baines probably has that left back position sewn up, so unless there's an injury concern, it's going to be very hard for Rose. It'd be nice for him to get invited. The middle, Dyer's one for the future. I think he can replace Jagielka or Cahill in a couple of years. I think he's definitely going to be in there backing those guys up.
When you look at the squad though, and the future of the English football team, the one thing that they really seem to be lacking lately, and I mentioned this yesterday when we were recording, with Rooney's age, you need to move him back a little bit. They have everything they need except for a center forward. And now that Kane has that resurgence, the one thing that knocked them out of the World Cup was that they couldn't score goals.
Right.
And if you get someone like Kane, he's not going to be knocking into a game like he's been doing for us lately on the international stage. But you talk about Dyer, you also have John Stones, and you have Nathaniel Klein, and you have a lot of really young, good defensive talent that Hutchin or whoever the manager may be at the time will be able to pull from as Baines fades out, as Rooney fades out. There's a lot of, you have Sterling that can step up into that kind of role. Townsend's already been playing, and he was the one that didn't play on Saturday.
You got Ross Barkley as well. Look, it's about as bright and talented.
And now you have a Ryan Mason, that can step into that midfield too and do some work for you. If
truth is, for now, I don't want any of them.
Hodgson can't do anything with this squad, the man needs to go.
I don't want any of our players to be in the England frame. Not until next year. I get so nervous with, different physios, different training methods, just getting out of the routine, not being. I hate it. I hate these friendlies.
I think we're all jealously guarding our own.
Because we've got a chance now. We've got to run at stuff. We got cup final.
We had this debate yesterday, and I know a lot of the younger Spurs fans, with all due respect, when it comes to club versus country, it's club, and I don't care about England. And I'm a little more of a vintage variety, so I'm still. I have that soft spot, despite the debacle of Brazil. I have a soft spot for England, and I buy into all the hype right before any competition comes to the final stages, and then it all goes Pete Tong again, and we hate England and want the manager out and feel we could all do a better job. But at the end of the day, you only have to do the tour of White Hart Lane to see the international honor roll. I think it's in the West Stand in one of the lounges up there, and it lists every player that's represented in any country internationally, and there's a huge number of Spurs players on there, and long should it continue. And it's not just about the foreign players, it's about the homegrown players. So I want to see them all do well. And Ryan Mason, what a success story. We all saw him coming in, we're like, oh, this isn't going to work. He's been a journeyman, he's been all over on loan, and he just works his socks off every single game. And I'm loving the kid to death because of what he brings, the tenacity in the midfield, and that bulldog spirit that we really have not seen a lot over the past few years. Just some of our defensive mid anchors have not been that good, unfortunately, and it's good to see him and Bentaleb and the relationship and the partnership they have and how it all fits together. So going back to the England thing, the press talks about, it's foolish to put Rooney in the midfield. You know what? in a deep lying role, it would be. But I think if he's in that number 10 role with a forward, technically that's midfield, but it's an attacking midfielder, and he's just a deep lying forward. And whether that's Harry Kane or Sturridge, Rodgers is playing the mind game. So tomorrow, that Sturridge is still a more complete striker than Kane. He's older than Kane. He's probably a bit beefier than Kane. But I think they're very similar in style. You're not going to see Harry doing the showboat stuff. He's a hard-working player who can keep the ball at his feet. He shoots well, and everything he shoots seems to get on target.
Yeah.
So, they're not the same players. He's not the same as Welbeck. Welbeck will have a tendency to drift wide. Harry just pops up all over the pitch. You know what? And I read some other article late on today, just going into a bit more depth about him as a player and where he pops up and what he does. And I read that and went, yeah, that's a different way of looking at it, and that's very complimentary of his style. And we discussed this yesterday, and I remember the first time I saw him, and it's not like this is an overnight sensation. The club has been working with him from a very early age. I saw him when I went over at the old training ground, Spurs Lodge in Chigwell. I watched him train with the first team it was just after the Inter-Champions League game where we beat them 3-1 at the Lane, maybe a week later. He is training with the first team. Short sleeves, shorts. He hasn't got the snood on, no tracksuit tops like the rest of the players, and he's out there with the first team squad. And earlier in the year, the 2010 Dallas Cup, he was supposed to come on tour with the lads, but Redknapp wanted to keep him back as he had a couple of injury concerns with strikers. So he was that valued then. I was told by my friend who works at the academy that he's one for the future. So I started to follow Harry Kane 5 years ago, and have seen his progression as he's come up, and he's gone on loan and then started to make his first team appearances last season. And it's all merited. Yeah. And now it's all coming to fruition for him and benefiting the club. It's benefiting the Premier League. It's benefiting everything that's good about football, because this is one of our own.
Yeah, and I think the one thing to remember too is it's not just what he does in the final third. It's long shots, it's short shots, it's headers. How many times have we seen him in the defensive third, making a tackle or heading a ball out on a corner and then racing upfield? He is a complete footballer, not just a center forward. It is, if you, as Sam said at the beginning of the podcast, what a time it is to be alive, because you see the potential in him. And I want to make sure everybody understands that I'm using that word potential, because he has the potential to be for England what Wayne Rooney has been for England. He could be the next, the one that he hands the baton off to. Even Wayne Rooney has said publicly, England need Harry Kane in their senior side.
Sorry, go ahead.
So throw this out. He's a lifelong Spurs fan. He's one of our own. We know that. He scored 22 goals already this season. I don't remember how many he scored last season. He's got the potential easily to do 30. He scored 8 this year, I believe, just in 2015, which is a phenomenal clip. So let's say he scores 30, maybe 35 tops this season. That's a tough statistic to carry on. Yeah. Let's say he continues to improve and he stays with the club until he's 30, 31. Do you think he's going to challenge Greasy's record at that point?
Oh, come on. Why can't be talking about this?
I know. Why did I do that?
Listen, first of all, he'll be well on his way to Madrid before that happens.
Oh, stop. Yeah, they scouted him 3 times.
And you know what? You guys, I can't believe
he's on his way next week, right?
You're not giving any credit to those 2 magical years as an 8 and 9-year-old that he spent at Arsenal.
Oh, I forgot about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've never seen the pictures. Are they out there?
Come on,
let's
not do that.
He even talked about it. He said, "Look, I was an impressionable young
kid.
Jim, I just wanted to play football."
I didn't mean it, mate.
You can't do that. It's
what? Going back to the question though, Greavy's record. I mean, when you're playing, what was it, 2-3-5 formations back then? Everything was attack.
The WM.
Yeah, you are never. I just want people to keep on thinking he's crap. Yeah,
I don't even like talking about how
keep
how
making fun of his name. You know, all they want as he's pouring in goals.
Everything that you would want your son to develop as a